How do you, as a man, reconcile this concept that your libido is an asset, right? Like time, like money, you have to be careful about where you invest it. And some people are not worth investing that particular asset of libido into. Now, one of the questions I get more often than not that I have real difficulty answering is around the concept of how do I reconcile that idea with a relationship? The variance of question typically goes something like this. Joseph, I'm a married man. I've been with my wife X amount of years. And more recently, I've discovered the notion that libido is an asset that I need to be diligent with, let's say. Or I've been with my girlfriend for X amount of years, or I'm starting a new relationship. How do I bring up the conversation around this fact that I want to be intimate with my partner, like we all do, right? But I recognize the consequences of being greedy and always finishing with fireworks at the end, if you understand what I mean. 97, 98, 99, 100. I'll get you there. I'll get there. How do you bring up this conversation? Well, the answer is with difficulty. I remember when I had this conversation with my ex, she didn't understand it. And one of the problems is that a lot of her satisfaction was derived from my satisfaction. And if I wasn't fully able to communicate that, not just through words, but through body language, through tonality, through feeling, through energy in that particular context, then that would be difficult for her. Now, the first answer to that question, and my best attempt at an answer to that question is, first and foremost, education thoroughly through very, very powerful resources like Mantak Chia's work. There's actually a chapter in his book, The Multi-Orgasmic Man, which addresses this particular question. And I believe he does so quite well. And it's essentially just educating women that men can actually, as the title of the book says, have multiple orgasms. I know, weird. Maybe as a man, you might be experiencing this for the first time, not actually experiencing it now, but the knowledge you will have. You can experience it. They're called NEOs, non-ejaculatory orgasms. And they can be honed, and like any muscle, you can develop it, you can strengthen it. One really good resource, actually, if you're interested, is an app called Mindgasm. And it is a tremendous resource in fundamentally getting you to where you want to go, if that's of resource to you. So back to the question. One of the ways that you can experience intimacy with your partner without the, let's say, consequences of depleting yourself of this libido asset is something called Carezza. There's a phenomenal book by Marina Robinson that I've referenced many, many times called Cupid's Poison Arrow that talks about a slower, more, is romantic the word? A form of intimacy that is predicated on pair bonding and not using your partner as a means, well, as a sex toy might be a better way to describe it, as a means to just dopamine, just the pleasure principle. And I think, again, I'm trying to be realistic here because this is my best answer. But then again, I think that dopamine is a very powerful chemical that is a great benefit, and not many people, especially men with our testosterone and our libido being more voracious than most, are going to be content with not always experiencing that particular chemical. But in that way, you should understand it, and the way I view it and interpret it is like having fast food, right? We know fast food's terrible for us if we're eating it every single day, but once in a while, it's not going to hurt us. We get that pleasure principle out of it. In the same way, if I'm going to be sensitive towards a realistic modern worldview, I think carezza, which is a form of intercourse without the fireworks at the end, in combination with, what would you say, traditional intercourse with the fireworks at the end, and or good contraception on your end, or the equivalent, is probably the best answer I have. There are easier answers to give that are less complicated, but people don't like. I don't like this particular answer, which is, marriage, no sex before marriage, and only sex for the purposes of procreation. Now, I know that might seem contrary to some of the things that I've shared here, but I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic to the modern struggles and the modern temptations and the modern living that most of us, entertain. Going back to an earlier point, it's not as if you can't entertain intimacy without that upsurge in dopamine from a big O. I mentioned before NEOs, non-ejaculatory orgasms, and the idea behind that is you get all the benefits of the dopamine principle when you are engaging in that kind of activity, but without the repercussions of taxing your biochemistry, your sexual fluid, to be scientific and less crass. There are still some implications, though, in my personal opinion, that any form of orgasm is still very, very taxing on the nervous system and may inhibit some negative effects in terms of, again, us thinking of the prerequisite as libido as fundamentally an asset. There is something in that for me, because I have noticed when I do experience something like that, then it is completely consequence free. I mean, nothing really is in the world. That's the law of karma, as the Hindus and the Vedic principles certainly do delineate in their scripture. But it would be naive and irresponsible for me not to kind of give you the information that may be of resource to you to answering that particular question yourselves. Again, if you are in a position where you are in a relationship, but you want to be a little bit more conservative and mindful of this particular asset, and always be outcome orientated. I'm sure there's going to be individuals commenting in the comment section below in relation to this particular subject, saying that they're more well versed than me, and some of the things I'm saying aren't resourceful. And that's completely okay. It's completely okay if you're getting what you want. That's what I will say is, the first question, or the first response I would give to individuals who are asking that question is, for what purposes are you entertaining more conscientiousness in terms of your libido? And if the answer is something to the affinity of, I would like more energy, I want to perform better in my business, then I would say, yeah, it's probably a good idea to be a little bit more intentional when you are and when you are not using this particular blessing that you have in your life. If you're finding that it is getting in the way of your work, if it's getting in the way of you building your business, hell, it might even be getting in the way of you connecting with your partner if all you are doing is interacting on the level of your limbic system and not on the level of your heart, your soul, compassion, and kind of connecting predicated on a more pair bonding oxytocin principle, then I think there are grounds there to entertain something a little bit more wholesome and be, again, a little bit more diligent with this particular expression of that particular energy. Tantra is another area we can certainly talk about in this regard, on this particular thread. An idea that many modern relationships are based around a dopaminergic principle and not a pair bonding principle, and Tantra and Carezza are an attempt to connect with your partners on the level of the soul and of the heart. And I know that might sound very Disney, but the problem is out there in the world is, if you take away the sexual component to most relationships out there, how many of you do you think will really last? And it's not a high number. And that is not a good thing fundamentally. If your goals are monogamy, if your goals are a nuclear family, a very strong unit in that respect, if your goals are not to be divorced, not have to have more than 50% of your assets taken away from you as a man, I'm speaking to men specifically here, And I think that's something that we can all agree is a major concern for us. And if that is the end goal, then certainly we need to be exercising our relationships' strength in terms of the bond between souls and hearts and values, as opposed to how much dopamine and pleasure I can squeeze out of your body at every given moment. And I'm sure you would agree with that. But if that is your wants, then a relationship fundamentally isn't for you. It's for somebody else. Maybe promiscuity is where you are in your particular karmic cycle, and that's fine. I was there. Exercise that out of you. You will see that there is, that well is empty. It won't satiate you. It's like trying to chase the horizon. You never get there. You never actually hold the sun in the palm of your hands. It will turn to, ash, and it will leave you like a collapsing star. Gravity so dense that you might not escape. You might not escape. And, I don't mean to be pedantic in that regard, but, I see men walking around with their eyes open, but no lights behind them, because their souls have been ravaged by this concept of, the 3 Ps. It's promiscuity, it's adult material use, and also it's paying for it as well. And the rise of things like OF are not in relation to a lust for just pleasure, but a lust for intimacy, a lust for connection. That's why it's so popular. It's not because it's adult material. It's because they feel on some kind of level, there is a relationship there. Even though there's not, they've deluded themselves into thinking that there is. And that is the most damaging thing of all that we need to avoid as men and educate our brothers around. So gentlemen, I have no idea if I'm going to post this video or not. It's me being a tad vulnerable here. But if I do let me know if you enjoyed this very unique, unusual, and non-traditional concept, and perhaps if you would entertain more in your day. Are these theories, are these facts? You can let me know. Speak soon.